And then he asked the question, so that this descent that we just described now, the descent to create the higher worlds and the descent to create the lower worlds, that's going down to Egypt, going down to Mitzrayim, that's Golus. And the question is, why is that Golus? That's Seder Shtalshalos, it's beautiful. As you said yesterday, the manifested worlds, that's what Gan Eden is. Incredible divine revelation and pleasure and enjoyment. Paradise. That's Mitzrayim. Why is it Mitzrayim? That's the natural order of God's revelation. Ishtalshalos is a divine, godly, and beautiful revelation of God. So he answered the question. He said, that's the way attack is naturally. Naturally, pre-sin. But what sin does is, as we said yesterday, you get blind and you can't see. Sin creates concealment, or the metaphor we used yesterday was you turn your back. If you turn your back on the person, it can be right next to you, and they're smiling and gesturing, all kinds of things, and you're not seeing a single thing because you turned your back. So that's what Golus is. So therefore, Seder Shtalshalos no longer reveals God because we're not seeing. All we're seeing is the creation itself. We don't see the creative force. And they went on to explain, what you're following, went on to explain, that's why Adam, how ludicrous is this? He's hiding. You think you can hide from God? But that's what happens. That when a person transgresses, since it's really a mirror, since he doesn't see God anymore, there's the natural conclusion that God doesn't see me either. I'm hiding from him. The bottom line is the concealment. If you're not seeing God, then it's easy to forget that he sees you. You can only remember that he sees you and he's revealed when you're cognizant of him. But if you turn your back, he's watching you. Everything is good, but you're not getting a thing. And so in his mind, because he doesn't see God anymore, God doesn't see him either. That's what happened already in Gan Eden. So what's the intent? That from this descent, that both the natural descent that Hashem made, higher worlds, lower worlds, and even further, a third descent, which is dramatic, a complete concealment and a corruption and denial of Hashem. That's what sin does. It's idolatry. But yet from all of this will come two elevations. Through Teshuvah, we will elevate the revealed worlds, and even the higher world. In other words, Seder Shtalshalos is going to go far beyond the way it was at the beginning. It was beautiful at the outset, revealed Hashem as creator and the paradise and all of the virtues. As a result of the Yerida, of the descent, we don't go back to that state. No, Aliyah. Had to be a transformative revelation, both in the higher worlds and the lower worlds. Clear? That's the outline. Yeah, so let's continue. Where's Gimel? Yeah?
Hashem changes. Hashem, the Eibishter, never changes. We do. Meaning, we see him or we don't see him. He's there in the same level.
Yeah, that's true. On the other hand, he does respond to us. Because his presence doesn't change. But whether he's in pain or he has pleasure, that changes.
He removes himself?
No.
To a lesser revelation?
Is
there ever an event?
Everything is there. We're not getting it. We're not getting it.
We change.
That's true. So I'm answering you. What doesn't change is God's presence and God's revelation. What does change is he's pained or he has pleasure. The fact that
when he does or doesn't, does that change the way he reveals himself?
The problem is in Golus he's not revealed. It's internally. In Golus we don't see his pleasure, we don't see his pain because we turned our back on him. It's just but the pleasure and pain is happening. He is affected by us because he chose to be affected. So he's affected. We're not seeing his pain. We're not seeing his pleasure when he do a mitzvah. But that's what happens. So what doesn't change is his presence. But what's going on as it were kavayachol within him, that does change through our actions.
In Mitzrayim, when we were in Mitzrayim, Hashem was not revealed to us. Obviously, it was a story. Like it was it?
Initially, yes.
But was it him removing himself?
We went down to Mitzrayim, he was revealed. There was a yeshiva and Hashem was talking to Yaakov, it was all good. Then the Yidden They sunk into Mitzrayim, and then the concealment started. The original Mitzrayim was not concealment.
So again, because of what we did, we removed ourselves from him, not the other way around.
He never removes himself from him. I'm saying it's like you're sitting. It's either you're facing him or you turned around. The same closeness, but we're still establishing. What doesn't change is his presence. He's always there. What is God experiencing, feeling? That dramatic. that we affect. The Shekhinah is crying, the Shekhinah is smiling, he has nachas, he's in pain. Tremendous effect. Why? How can we affect God? Because he decided we should, so he does. It's only because he wants that, but he's definitely affected. So what he's saying here is, so again, what's not is his presentness. He's not removed, but he's hurt or he has pleasure. So he's saying the whole kavanah that we come down to the world is to elevate the natural Yeridus. The natural Yeridus, where they still reveal godliness tremendously, the higher worlds for sure, the lower worlds, Atzilis, Bri, Yitzir, Asi, again, Bri is Gan Eden Elyon, Yitzir is Gan Eden Atachtan, that's divine revelation. So through Tshuva, we don't just go back to the way creation was, unmarred, beautiful, revealing godliness in glorious ways. We go far beyond that. The higher worlds get transformed, and even the lower worlds. And that's what he's going to explain. Yeah, now it gets really a little bit heavy, so we'll go slow. You stop me if you need to understand something. Levaya, now to explain, Masha Kosta Ve'ela Shemos Bnei Sabar Mitzrayim. To explain the idea of the names. These are the names of the Jews who went down to Egypt. Why is the name significant? I could have even just dropped the word names. These are the Jews who went down to Mitzrayim, and then list them. But there's an emphasis on the idea of a shame of a name. And that has to do with going down to Mitzrayim. What's the connection between a name and this descent into Mitzrayim? Answer. So Maktim Levaya, so the Alter Rebbe explains in Torah, Pirush, we say, in the Baruch She'amah, at the end, we say, you're going to say in a few minutes, the inyan of Melech, Meshubach, Umafayar Adei Ad, Shmaya Gadol. Let's translate. Melech, king, Meshubach. It's several translations, usually praised, but praiseworthy, Umafura and glorious, unto ever is his great name. Shubach Umafayar Adei Ad, Shmaya Gadol. So we're all talking about the Shmaya, this whole quote is talking about the great name of Hashem, that it is Meshubach and Mefayar Adei Ad, praise and glorious unto eternity. What does all this mean? Vinyan was mamash connected to Dan Notzach, because the Dan Notzach is Moshe Nitzchius, victory forever, Rebbe forever. So Adei Ad, so the concluding words here in this tefillah is that his name, Melech Meshubach Mefayar Adei Ad Shmaya Gadol. So what does Adei Ad mean? Eternal, Moshe Nitzchius. Now what does eternal mean? When you say something's forever, you are acknowledging the existence of time. And then you can say, this time, but this that I'm referring to exists in time forever. So the term forever is a limited term. It's already related to time, beyond time. But it's still connected to time. It's measured and experienced by the fact that it is beyond time.
You're here.
Sorry?
You're here.
I'm leaving after davening at 10 o'clock. I'm supposed to be going. Yeah. we're talking the true infinite beyond time, it's not appropriate to say that that level is eternal, time-wise, because it's utterly beyond the whole notion of time. So that's the meaning of our Tefillah Baruch She'omar. This is how we begin the Pesukei de Zimra. We say, where is the eternity? Where is it appropriate to use eternal? Not for God himself, but his name. His name, his great name, there it's appropriate to say that his great name is forever. Because as he goes on to say, a name is already related to time and space. As he goes on to say now, when can we talk about Nitzchias, eternity? It only applies to a name. Now, what does a name mean? A name means which somebody else is referring to you. That's something somebody else has limited. So his perception, he exists in time. So in his perception, he's calling you the eternal one because I'm stuck in time, but you are beyond time. And that's, the highest thing we can say, beyond time, even though we just said it's limitation. So a name is associated with his man. And he explains more detail. The name of God, of all of the attributes, is Malchus. Pashat, he's called king. That's God's name. The Melech HaGodol, the great king, and that's Malchus. As explained in Chassidus, the connection to words. This is all words. Malchus is words. Words by which you communicate to the world outside of you. The nature of kingship is you're king of a people. It's not intrinsic within him, relating to himself only. Malchus, by definition, relates to a kingdom. So that's what words mean. Words are you're relating to outside. And if you're relating to a kingdom, that means Hashem is descended onto a plane that's related to time and space, to the kingdom, to physical reality. But his name, his creative force, is infinite. The divine force, Malchus, the words are eternal. Eternal. Why do we say the word eternally? Because it's appropriate, because he actually produces finite and time-bound things. But that force is beyond time. As it goes on to say, Shehi, Malchus, God's attribute of governance, that's Malchus, governance, the divine word. A king rules through, how does a king rule? Through words. He gives edicts. That's how he governs, not with his hands. Malchus Peh, right? We say in Pasachil every Friday night. Shehi, Mokev V'Sheshin Zman, so Malchus is the source of Zman. And he sends us, you see, Tanya, Shayichot Perek Zayin. That's what we find about Malchus. We find time. Melech, Malach, Yimloch. Now, we're saying forever, but we're saying forever in time. Past, present, and future. It's not true Blikvul, not true infinite. It's connected to time. We're clear? More detail. Like it says, Bitcho ba'Hashem, Pasuk says in Yeshaya, trust in God, adayad, forever, kibeko ha'avaya etzur hilovim. One of the meanings is that God formed the world with his two holy letters of Yud and Hey. But the emphasis here is adayad. Trust in God forever. Shinin adayad. So when we refer to God as forever, we're relating that to time. Shaykh rak bedarg is shimoker. It's the source. This avos ha'ilam is to the creation of the world. That's his speech. And that's what's meant by the rock of the worlds. Worlds. There is worlds. Sur, you're the rock. The idea of a rock is you remain unchanged. A rock is impervious to change. Symbolically, it's very hard and endures. So that's the eternity that's within creation that produces creation. Sur elamim. In a word, Malchus. In a word, God's words. God's speech. However, he goes on to say, but in more detail, if any questions, you stop me, yeah? But the number 26 in the text. Yesh kama madreges b'shmoi hagadol. There are levels in God's great name. And he's going to identify them now. Ha'aleph. The first level is, which name are we talking about? Sheshem Havaya. The name Havaya, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, of the 7 names, is the loftiest, is the holiest. Shuayos and Naila, that's the loftiest, we call Zayin Hashem Hashem Chacham. All the 7, the other 6, that once written on a paper, the paper or the object has to be treated with holiness, it can't be erased. So, but Shem Havaya of all 7 is the highest revelation. And it's Nikra, that's what's called Shmoi HaGodel, the great name. Ordinary name of Hashem would be the other 6. But the great name is the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Now, what level is that the Maila? Vo'inyan b'chiras ha'chochma. That's chochma, that's silus. As it's known that Shem Havaya, the general name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, what attribute of God does it revealed? U'b'chochma. That's why it starts with a Yud. Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, because chochma is a point, is a Yud, which means that when Hashem, amongst other things, it means when God reveals His presence on the level of chochma, everything is nullified, like a Yud, like a point. Endless layers of meaning to that, but that's just mentioning that for some measure of understanding. Now, what is chochma? God, Shrinina Torah? That's God's conception of Torah. That's where God produces and manifests the divine infinite wisdom. Because as he goes on to say, the quote from the Zohar, Teiraisa, the Torah, Chochma nafkas. It comes, it emerges from Chochma. And there's levels within Torah too. Just like in Shem Havaya, there's the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. So Torah is all levels. In general, the Yud is Torah Shebiksav and the Hey is Torah Shebal Peh. There's levels in Torah. So v'zeh gam masha kol ha'Torah kula shema Yosef shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a famous Zohar that the entire Torah is what? Is God's names. Why? Because the entire Torah is the expression of His great name, Shmoi HaGodel, which is Chachma, which incorporates it within the other names as well. So that's the first level of name, is the Shmoi HaGodel, the great name, and we identified it. It's synonymous with Chachma, with Shem Havaya, with Torah. We're putting them all in one category because they're all different expressions of the same truth. The Shmoi HaGodel is great name. V'abeis, a second level. We're going higher, not lower. We're ascending now. Sheshmoi HaGodel l'bchinas keser. There's a higher level within the great name, and it's not Chachma, but that's God's crown, God's will. Shalomani b'chinas HaChachma. Shem Havaya, higher than Havaya. All right, so we have now two definitions of Shmoi HaGodel. The lower one, Chachma, and the higher one, Keser. We're getting technical, let's get that straight. Again, Keser is God's will, Chachma is God's plan or wisdom. And in Chachma, it's all there, seminally, the whole idea, the whole vision for Ishtalshalos and so on, it's all in a kernel sense in Chachma. And Keser is the will behind it all, that I want to have Ishtalshalos. And generally, it's God's desire for a dwelling place in the world. That's the Keser overall. Chachma is the implementation of it. When he conceived the idea, it's going to be Ishtalshalos and higher worlds and lower worlds. It's all there seminally, right? B'koyach in Chachma, Nekuda. So that's the two levels of Shmoi HaGodel. Now it goes on to say, V'zeo gam beis hapirushim minyan noya mavaya. There's two meanings in delighting, taking pleasure, delighting in God. Two meanings. Ha'aleph, ha'noyem v'ha'oineg. What's the pleasure that the neshama is experiencing? Ha'nimshech, it's drawn, meshem havaya. You're experiencing God's revelation as it is in Chachma. And when you experience that, that is a great delight. And that's called Noyam Havaya, because what? You are delighting in Yud Kei Vav Kei. What's Yud Kei Vav Kei? Primarily the Yud. That's Chochmah. So what is this level? V'zeho Gan Eden HaTacht. Because Yud's revealed where? In Atzilus. Chochmah. Where's the pleasure to apprehend that experience in that? That's Gan Eden HaTacht. Yidua Shesviras HaChochmah Shem Havaya. As it's known that Chochmah Shem Havaya Moker L'chol HaTenugim is the source of all the pleasures and delights that creation can know about God. Shabbat Natachna, which is where in the lower paradise. Va'beis, another meaning in the words delighting in Havaya, not receiving from Havaya, but higher than Havaya. Right, so that's the Kesser now. Va'beis, Adarch Mashakosov, the second meaning is Oz then Tisanag, you will delight, referring to Mashiach comes, Al Havaya. Literally over, high the level of Havaya. So we find there's a level of divine delight coming from Havaya, and then there's a higher delight experiencing God beyond Shem Havaya, beyond Chochmah, Keser, His will, pure will. Another example of a level of a pleasure that is experiencing Hashem beyond Shem Havaya, which is really beyond the Shtalshalos, Val Derazer, Ksiv Bechana, Chana, in which we say her story on Rosh Hashanah, right? And she gave birth to Shmuel. So the end, we read, Vatispalel al Havaya. She prayed literally on top of. Simple meaning is to God. But the deeper meaning is al Havaya dafke. She connected to a level higher than Shem Havaya. I mean, quite simply, because from the perspective of Shem Havaya, she wasn't going to have a child. That was the ruling, as it were. But we learned, but she went al Havaya, and she was mamshech, a new rotzen, and she was blessed with a child. So her tefillah reached higher than Havaya. And what's that? B'chinas HaKeser. And when a Jew experiences that, we in Gan Eden Elyon, experiencing a level of Keser, not the lower paradise, but the higher paradise, which is a much greater degree of bittul, and relatively speaking, it's radically beyond the lower Gan Eden, which is already Chochmah. It has parameters of intellect, of reason, of plan, of structure, and purpose, and levels. And Keser is the pure, transcendent will. That's Gan Eden Elyon. That's Al Havai. So that corresponds to the two levels of Shmoi HaGodel, whether it's Chochmah or Keser. The Yesh Darga, now third level, Nihilis Yosef b'nei Mavai, and then there's even a higher level in delighting on Hashem. So what's higher? Higher is higher. So this is higher than higher. The koi was referred to Abchinas ha'tchek, the longing, the thirst. Shelamayla mimanis hakeser. Here, a Jew's longing is not to experience your will, but to experience you. You. So this is higher than Keser. So this is going higher than Shmoi HaGodel, even the higher level of Shmoi HaGodel, which would be Keser. This is a longing, like the Rebbe used to say, in his Dveikus, you know the quote.
Zichalein.
Huh?
Zichalein.
Yeah. It's the last quote of the Hayoim Yom. And from my all the times I heard the Rebbe say this in a Maimon and I could never say it without choking up. Could never say, what is it? The Rebbe would say, Ich will ze gonist, I want nothing. Not your Gan Eden Elyon, your higher Gan Eden, not your Gan Eden HaTachten, she's talking about right here. Only you alone. So what that means is, so you got the biggest appetite. You're not satisfied. Chochmah, you're not satisfied with Keser. You have to have the opposite, because when connecting to the very essence, the whole sense of self is lost. It isn't about fulfillment. Knowing God's plan and understanding the mysteries of creation, Chochmah, that's very fulfilling. Even more fulfilling is experiencing the will that drives it all, the Rotz and Keser. That's very fulfilling. But when you go beyond the Keser, the very essence of Hashem, where it starts, then it's beyond experience and fulfillment. It's total oneness, all you. Not that the person disappears, but his sense of self completely disappears. It's not, I'm having a wonderful time. So that's the third level. Okay, we'll stop here. So I'll let you know.